Lord God, we give you thanks for all that is good in the life of the Borough of Wigan. And with thanksgiving, we remember the example of all who have served us in the past. And as we look to emerge from the pandemic, we pray that you would renew our vision for the life of the Borough of Wigan for the future, where every person would flourish. We ask that you'd use our councillors to help bring peace, prosperity, righteousness, recovery and hope. Bless our local council, we pray, with good relationships, strong accountability, sound decisions, effective budgeting, and servant hearts for the good of our community and for the sake of those on its margins. And finally, we pray, especially for our meeting this evening, that by integrity of word and action, all councillors serving the Borough of Wigan may uphold justice, truth, and peace, so that your will would be done. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Please be seated. Can I remind members of the need to respect each other, and I will continue to chair these meetings fairly and to show impartiality. Likewise, members of the public are welcome, but should be aware that they should not interrupt the proceedings, as disruption may result in removal from the public gallery. The rules of conduct for the meeting have been circulated in advance of the meeting and copies are on your seats. I also need to stress the correct use of the following rules. 11.12, points of order. A member may at any time raise a point of order relating only to an alleged breach of these council rules of procedure or the law. The member must indicate the rule or law and the way in which he or she considers it has been breached. As Mayor, I will leave the member immediately and my ruling on the matter will be final. 11.13, personal explanation. A member may at any time request myself as the Mayor to allow them to make a personal explanation relating only to some material part of an earlier speech by that member which may appear to have been misunderstood in the present debate. My ruling on the admissibility of a personal explanation will be final. I will now move to the agenda. Apologies for absence.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Apologies for absence. Councillor J. Ellis, Councillor S. Dewhurst, Councillor J. Harding, Councillor K. Hulton, Councillor P. Kenny, Councillor C. Morgan, Councillor M. Morgan, Councillor E. Rigby, Councillor J. Talbot, Councillor R. Whittingham, Councillor T. Halliwell. Are there any further apologies this evening?
Thank you, Alison. Minutes of the meeting held on 21st of July 2021. I move the acceptance of these as a correct record. Leader.
Madam Mayor.
Can I put the minutes to the vote? The motion is carried. Mayor's announcements. Death of former Leader of the Council, Councillor Peter Smith, Lord Smith of Lee. It is with deep regret that I have to refer to the death of the former Leader of the Council, Councillor Peter Smith, Lord Smith of Lee, on the 2nd of August 2021. Lord Smith has served the community with commitment, determination and distinction for over 44 years. He was elected to Wigan Metropolitan Borough Council in 1978 and has served on most committees in an ex officio capacity and was chairman of the Finance Committee from 1983 until 1991. Lord Smith then became the Leader of the Council and subsequently the Executive Leader of Cabinet in 2000. He was a founder member of the Wigan Borough Partnership, driving forward economic development within the private sector. In June 1999, Peter Smith was created a life peer with the title Lord Smith of Lee. Whilst in Parliament, his interests were local government, health and transport matters, as well as raising the profile of the borough. Lord Smith pursued local government issues at a national level, as well as at regional and sub-regional levels. He was appointed by the Local Government Association as a trustee of the Leadership Centre for Local Government and was appointed chair since March 2010. Lord Smith was chairman of the North West Regional Assembly from 1999 to 2000 and was appointed as the first chairman of the English Regions Network. In 2005, he was appointed as the chair of the Executive Board of the North West Regional Association. From June 2000, saw his election as chairman of the Association of Greater Manchester Authorities, AGMA, and as collaboration between the city region grew, he became chairman of the AGMA Executive Board. He was a director of Manchester Airport plc from 1986 to 2010 and was a past chairman. As leader, Lord Smith had been the determined driving force behind the success of Wigan Council and its national reputation for innovation and creativity. The Council recognised Peter's long and distinguished service to local government and beyond by conferring him the title of Honorary Freeman on the 7th of December 2011. Peter Smith stepped down as leader in 2018, but was still very active within Greater Manchester and in Parliament. Peter leaves a wife, Joy, and daughter, Hannah, and they, together with close family and friends, are with us this evening to listen to the special tributes made in the chamber. This is a difficult time for the family, and we appreciate them taking the time out to be here at the meeting. Do any members wish to speak? Councillor Walker?
You've read a list, very shortened list of what Peter did in his life in local government terms. But I just want to talk about one or two of the personal things that I remember about Peter. So I first met Peter way back when our MP in Leigh was a guy called Harold Boardman. And he wasn't the most astounding member of Parliament that you've ever met. And Peter, always active in the constituency, was one of the ginger group. And of course, I was also one of the young guns that wanted us moving on and change and the like. And I suppose Peter's first claim to fame in terms of action in the Wigan Borough was, and I think it was called the Leigh People's Paper. And it was a bit of an underground paper that was circulated in the Leigh, Tilsley, Atherton area. And it was having a go at the council and the establishment generally. And it was about, you know, we've got to move on, we've got to do more, life's, you know, too slow to just sit and carry on. It created quite a stir locally. It was probably, you know, you never heard of it in Wigan, but in our neck of the woods, it was quite a big issue. And it was no one theoretically knew the editor of this paper. But to most of us in the know, it was Peter who was putting out this. And it was just the first sign of how he wanted to move on. A year or two later, Peter got elected himself and joined the club. And Bernard Coyle was our leader at the time. And Bernard soon spotted that there was a little group of us, and there was Terry Wayne, myself and Peter and Brian Strett, who used to be our chair of social services, as well as chair of the hospital trust. And we were the sort of young guns. Brian Strett wasn't the chair of social services then. I think it was Agnes Peat, whose, I think, daughter or granddaughter became quite well known locally. So it gave us a job to do about strategy. It was really to keep us out of everyone's way, I think. And we used to have these regular meetings at Hay Hall to discuss strategy for the borough and come up with ideas for Bernard to either yes or no to and sort of put to the group. But it was a real taste, because it wasn't just a talking group. Lots of the ideas became things that happened in this borough. And it really made us feel like even though we weren't part of the establishment, it made us feel like, you know, we were good at something. And Peter, of course, was a leading figure in this group. So those young guns went on and of course became part of the establishment and got very involved. And Peter eventually took over as leader of the council for Bernard Coyle. And there was a bit of a leadership battle between the ex-director of education and Peter for who would become the leader of the council. Most of you won't know this because it's just a bit of history, but that's how it was then, and Peter became the leader of the council, and was very popular also at AGMA. Within a very short period, because AGMA at the time was led by the leader of Salford. Can't remember his name, but cracking old guy. And I think there was a real feel that what they didn't want was AGMA being taken over by Manchester and just becoming a greater Manchester domain. The city of Manchester I'm talking about now. And so Peter became the leader of AGMA. And at that same time, and this is where Wigan stood at that time, so as myself, I was the leader of the fire authority, and they were independent then. Each one of them was a body in its own right. Steve Murphy, another one of our councillors who died a couple of years ago now, was head of police, leader of the police, and Joe Clark was leader of transport. And it was amazing how we dominated Greater Manchester. And certainly when I got involved in fire, I became involved nationally, but one of the things that I spent a lot of time in London. And of course, Peter was by then in the House of Lords in London, and made sure that I met the right people in London to further the cause of Greater Manchester Fire and the fire world generally, and just make sure that people, and that was typical of how he was. He was the same with Steve, with police. He was the same with Joe with transport. He really made us sort of part of the establishment and made sure that Wigan's views prevailed rather than it just being big cities that dominated everything. And I think that was a bit of a tribute. The other thing that many of you won't know is how involved Peter was at the airport, because he ran the airport for many years. You know, he was the chairman of the airport. One of our predecessors, Gordon Thomas, so one of our councillors was chairman of the airport, and you'll go into the Gordon Thomas suite today when you go into the airport sometimes. But it was, Wigan really was the emphasis that Greater Manchester was a lot bigger than just Manchester. And Peter was very determined that that was the case. And despite a little bit of local publicity that somebody else created Lee Sports Village, make no mistake, Peter was very, very, there was no ifs or buts. It wasn't some other local dignitary. Peter created that situation. It was an opportunity with some funding that he grabbed and he made our own. And he put, to be honest, we from Lee, us Lathers, so to speak, cared passionately that, you know, Wigan town didn't dominate everything. And Peter made that happen as well, but he made sure that outside of the borough, Wigan did dominate everything. And it was a real exciting time, but to watch him in action, how he delivered on each of those things was enormous. Now, Peter was not the strongest at suffering fools. You know, I've got to be honest about that, and I'm sure that some of you found that over the period. But one of the things that I did find with Peter, because, of course, he lived 50 yards from the boundary with my ward, but we were friends way back from that Lee People's paper. We went out until COVID regularly for meals with Terry Wins. Terry's still about, and still we were in a little friendship ring and enjoyed each other's company. But one of the things that I did notice with Peter, and I was talking about not suffering fools lightly, was when he came across people who couldn't articulate, couldn't cope, who were genuinely struggling, then he went the extra mile. That's when you saw Pete, the Peter you never saw as a councillor, as a leader. You saw him then working with people to try and get out of them what they were trying to get over. And that's the human face that lots of you won't have seen, because it didn't happen, you know, it only happened in those special circumstances. But when he did, you realised how much he cared for everybody in our borough. And that's all I want to say about a dear friend that I'm sad to lose. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Greensmith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak. Now, I've known Peter for a long time, before I became a councillor. But once I did become a councillor, I became aware of the knowledge that he gave to me and the guidance he gave to me. He made me and helped me to be the councillor I am today. Now, some of you will know in his spare time, Peter loved being in his garden, and he loved to cook, especially on his barbecue. And on many occasions, on a Saturday morning doing our surgery, he would walk in, plonk 2 bags down, one for Myra, one for myself. When we looked inside, it was rhubarb, and it was really good rhubarb too, and he'd grown this in his garden. Now, on another occasion I'd like to tell you about, it was a December snowy evening, and it felt like Christmas. And we started to do our Christmas cards, deliver the Christmas cards. So it felt like Christmas, the snow was on the ground, so what did me and Myra do? We started singing carols. That's the only time I've ever known Peter to walk away and do a round on his own. On another occasion, he would ring just out of the blue and ask, would you like to meet up at the Miners to watch a match? Always making sure that he invited Alan along too. That's my husband. That's the sort of person he was. Never, never left anybody out. Yes, he was the Lord. Yes, he'd been the leader. But to us, he was just Peter. To be honest, Peter seemed to enjoy just being with his friends. And over the years, we become friends with the family. I forgot myself one day. As you know, Peter sometimes was very hard to make a conversation with. Well, this happened to me one evening when I was out. And I just turned round and I said, thank goodness Hannah doesn't take after you. And he just smiled and said, she takes after her mum. And I still smile at that. I even speak about that to Hannah on many occasions. Now, every election within the ward, the arm would come round. This happens every election. Did you know I only got voted in 1 year with 1 vote? Even Councillor Anderton didn't get away with that 1 vote. It was a legend within Lee West Ward. Now, Lee West Ward was his joy. And he worked hard with his colleagues to do what he could for our residents. Peter would not let anyone know how poorly he really was, and he was very poorly. But he worked with Dane and myself to the very end. He really did. He always wanted to know what was going on in the ward, how he could help. Lord Peter Smith will never, never be forgotten for all the work he has achieved in Lee West Ward and for Wigan Borough. And I, for one, will truly miss a good friend. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Greensmith. Councillor Winstanley.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and it's obviously with great sadness that I pay my tribute to Peter Smith. Obviously, I haven't worked as closely with Peter as some of the colleagues who've spoken tonight or known him as long, but I have known him for 20 years, but all my political life has been there. It's a bit like when the Duke of Edinburgh died. He's always been there, and it was the same with Peter with regard to Wigan politics. He was always there, and, you know, we are a worse place now for him not being here and being part of our public life. But what I wanted to do was just share a couple of stories and little anecdotes of actually the kindness that he's actually shown over the years to myself and also to members of my group as well, who with various things that have happened over that period of time. When I first got elected in 2000, I was only 29. I was the youngest member of the council, and quite clearly not the youngest member of the council anymore. And the numbers were, obviously you had a massive majority then. You've got a massive majority now. It was even worse then. It was it was 1 Conservative, 2 Liberal, the rest Labour. We might have had an independent Labour. I think Betty Edwardson was still on then. But the numbers were pretty significant. And when we used to have the induction, it used to be in the old Charter Suite. And you got in there and all the great and the good, all the directors were there on your first night to talk you through how they wouldn't deal with your complaints and all that kind of stuff. I'm only joking. You know, and then Peter came in as a leader and gave a bit of a talk about how things worked. But after that meeting, he called me to one side and said, could I just have a word with you a second? So I thought, oh, God, here we go. Because when I came here on my own, there was no one. I was literally walking here on my own. It was like walking into the lion's den as far as I was concerned at that particular point in time, because you're not really a friendly bunch anyway. So it was really intimidating coming in here. And he said, look, I know you're on your own, and obviously you're Conservative, but if there's anything I can do or I can help in any way, then let me know. And to be fair, over the years, he was always true to that, and I can't actually speak highly enough of that, actually. And when my dad died very suddenly in 2007, he emailed me afterwards, because anyone that's lost someone very suddenly knows how that sudden trauma and shock, it is quite difficult to deal with. But he emailed me to say a similar thing had happened to him. And I just thought that he didn't need to do that, and that was a really nice touch and a nice thing to do. And I've always remembered that, and I really appreciated that. And the second point, or the third thing I wanted to share, was when Henry Cadman, obviously my colleague who was Deputy Mayor at the time, had a stroke and was in hospital, and he wasn't in a good way. And Sheila rang me to say, we've got a problem. This procedure needs to be done. They said they're going to do it, but nothing's happening. If this doesn't happen, he is literally going to die. Can you do anything? So the first person that came into my mind was Peter, because of his health portfolio and his contacts. Got hold of Peter. I don't know what happened, but whatever he did, he worked his magic, and that procedure got done. And obviously Henry then got discharged into the nursing home. But again, in the hour of need, he was there. And I've always remembered that. And that's a sign of just human decency. And I think that's really important, that for all the political hullabaloo that we have and the knockabout and all the rest of it, fundamentally, it's the decency of the human being. And I think that's certainly something that we've lost with Peter with Peter going. Obviously, politically, we never saw eye to eye. I can't say that we ever did, and I wouldn't expect us to. And we always had good political knockabout. I always made my point. Peter came back. But at the end of it, we could always have a drink afterwards, and we could always put our differences to one side, because fundamentally it's about serving the people of this borough. I've always believed that, and I know Peter certainly did that as well. And whenever I was in London and I was in the House of Commons in Strangersbury, we'd always come across, I think his day was Tuesday, so if I was there on a Tuesday night, we'd always come across, we'd always have a drink and talk about rugby, football, whatever it was, very, very often not politics in any way, shape or form. And I always welcome that, because when you're down there, it's always nice to see a familiar face and to have a drink and put the world to rights from that perspective. Madam Mayor, the list you ran out was obviously, as Councillor Walker said, wasn't as extensive as all the things he'd done. However, I think what I've always respected is the fact that no matter what party you're in, no matter what walk of life you're in, if you're able to operate at that level for so long, that just demonstrates what an ultimate professional you are in terms of whatever trade that you go into. And that's something else that I always respect about him. And to keep the leadership for so long as well was an absolute tribute, and to have all those jobs and be respected across AGMA and nationally as well just shows how well thought of Peter was. And the final thing I just wanted to say as well was when he ceased to become leader in 2018 and he became obviously backbench member of the council, he came onto audits and the standards committee, and I was really impressed. He turned up to every meeting, he read the papers, he contributed to the debate. Now, it would have been quite easy for him to say, do you know what, I've done my time, I've had enough, over to you lot now, you carry on. But he didn't do that. He actually came along, took part, and actually contributed to it as well. So I just wanted to share those thoughts and my experiences. So on behalf of the Conservative group, I'd obviously like to extend our condolences to Joanna, his colleagues, friends and family, and he will certainly leave a massive gap in the life of this borough. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Winstanley. Would any other members like to speak? Leader.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, thanks to my colleagues for their kind comments tonight, and thank you to Michael, because you did always enjoy the banter, Michael. You'd never any chance of seeing eye to eye with him, both physically and politically, because he certainly was a giant among men. And I know when I became leader, I did say that I could never fill his shoes. I think I'd have to wear a lot of pairs of socks. But Peter was not just a colleague of mine, he was a very, very good and close friend. And I remember the young guns, Fred, and I was even a younger gun when I came on. So you became part of a certain age group within the council. And certainly in those early days when you first step foot in the council, whether you're among a lot of your party colleagues or whether you're not, there's a lot of times when you're on your own, and you certainly feel the benefit of somebody actually coming talking to you and explaining things to you properly, and Peter did that. I've known Peter for nearly 40 years, and Fred, like me, this is the first time I've ever been to a council meeting where Councillor Peter Smith is not actually a member of this council, and it's certainly, everything I say tonight is very much heartfelt, because I got to know Peter quite well. But Michael's right. If he didn't want to talk to you, he didn't talk to you. But I was one of the lucky ones he did talk to. You know, he made it quite clear at times it was time to move on. He usually looked at his phone or his watch and you said, well, yeah, that's the end of that conversation. But I got on with him really well, and Peter was certainly head and shoulders a political giant. Not just here in Wigan, but across Greater Manchester and across the country in general. You don't get to the heights that Peter got without having a lot of ability, and Peter certainly showed that. And there's a lot of things you perhaps don't always see that side of Peter, and our colleagues have mentioned it tonight, and I know from a personal point of view with the issues that I had, me and Sheila had with health, and I know that Councillor Reedy, if he was standing up, would tell you the same in terms of the support he got from Peter and Joy when Susan was having health issues as well. And Peter had a very caring and compassionate side. He really did. He was as straight as a die in terms of how he spoke to people. And he did try to say to people, if you were wrong, I'll tell you you're wrong, but if you're right, he would certainly support you and point you in the right direction. And I said at the funeral that there's another side to Peter, which some people perhaps didn't always pick up. He was 100% a Lather, through and through, without any doubt whatsoever. And I said at the funeral, when you start to consider what he achieved in his life, in his political life, and it is an abridged version here tonight, if you put everything that he'd achieved in your address tonight, Madam Mayor, we'd have certainly been here past the watershed, because it was such a career that people will never perhaps follow, and find it very hard to follow. But I said, and I really meant it, if Peter could have swapped all that to score the winning try in the 1971 Rugby League Cup final, he would have. No two ways about it. If Alex Murphy had given him the nod and said, Peter, we want you to come on and win the game, he'd have loved every minute of it. Because Peter was passionate about sport, all sport. And he certainly was passionate about rugby league. And any chance he had to sing the virtues, not just of Lee Centurions, or Lee as they were known, he did, because he loved the game of rugby league, because there's a social aspect to the side of rugby league. There's a very, very much a working class value in the history of rugby league. And I certainly remember him mentioning to the visitors from Angers how the French government had treated rugby league in France and kind of tried to outlaw it and take all its money. So he even got to the international stage explaining how much rugby league meant to him. And can I say tonight, Madam Mayor, I've met with the board of Leigh Sports Village, and I know that the Centurions and the owner, Derek Beaumont, are also passionate about a lasting tribute to Peter Smith and his support for the club. And I want to announce tonight, Madam Mayor, that we're going to name a stand after Lord Peter Smith. And I think it's a fitting tribute to a man who did so much, not just for the borough, but to deliver Leigh Sports Village, to support his team through thick and thin, and to give the valuable service and the excellent service that he gave for the people of this borough. Madam Mayor, I can tell you very heartfelt that I will certainly miss Peter Smith, and I know that Joy and Anna are here tonight, and the hole in their heart must be bigger than mine. So can I just say, and I'll say it publicly, thank you for sharing Peter Smith with us, because he meant so much to the people here in Wigan and this borough. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. I think we'll all agree that's a very fitting tribute to Peter. On behalf of the Council, I have written to those closest to Peter to extend the Council's deepest sympathy for the sad loss that they have sustained. At this point, may I ask for a minute's silence to show a mark of respect for Peter Smith. Death of leader of Bolton, David Greenhalgh. We also learned the very sad news that Bolton Council leader, Councillor David Greenhalgh, passed away on the 29th of July 2021. David served as a local councillor in Bromley Cross for many years before becoming council leader in 2019. He was greatly respected and had many friends both in Bolton Town Hall and the wider community. Our thoughts at this time are with those closest to him, and I have written to the family. Do any members wish to speak? Councillor Winstanley.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I think it's fair to say that those 2 weeks at the end of July and the beginning of August were pretty tough weeks. Councillor David Greenhalgh was a really good friend of mine, and ironically I'd known him for about the same time that I'd known Peter Smith. And there's a strange connection as well, because when I first pitched up to Bolton North East to be interviewed to be the parliamentary candidate for the 2001 general election, so the interview was in the 2000, I'd just been elected here, and of course Joy's mother was a main protagonist of the Bolton North East Conservative Association. She was the president. So David said to her, "You've got to come and meet Dorothy. She's Peter Smith's mother-in-law." And of course, over that period, that was another great connection that I had with Dorothy, David, and of course Peter. But David was a tremendous character and a tremendous person as well. He was my election agent in 2001 in Bolton North East, and also for the Police and Crime Commissioner election in Manchester in 2012. And whenever I needed anything done politically, I went to David, and I knew I could rely on him. He'd not had the greatest of health. He'd had a double kidney transplant, but that didn't matter to him. Whatever life threw at him, he bounced back. He was always positive. He was always energetic, and actually gave 100% to whatever job that he did. And during the last 12 months, obviously we've all been through hell for the past 12 to 18 months, but being leader of the council, and as Councillor Molyneux will know, it was a pretty tough time when things were changing on a daily basis, things were being thrown at you all the time, and throughout that period he worked night and day, and as I know our leader did, in terms of trying to keep everything going and keeping things on the right path. And he remained positive all through that, and he was shielding for most of that as well because of his health. And unfortunately, as we'd started to come out of that, he did develop some other health problems, and unfortunately died. It's just a shame that he was taken from us so soon, and I wish that he'd had a bigger part to play in terms of leading Bolton. He was never afraid to speak up for Bolton, whether that be against his own Conservative government, or whether it's standing up to Nicola Sturgeon from Scotland when she was imposing travel bans on people in Bolton. And he was always there to fight the corner of the people of his borough. And I think that that's all we can ask of people, to stand up. It doesn't matter who's in government, whether it's your own side or not, you want to get the best for your people. And that's what David did. And I know he worked on the culture portfolio with our own chief executive on an AGMA basis, and gave that 100% as well. So I will certainly miss him personally, and I know the people of Bolton will miss him as well and his leadership. And so obviously I've extended my condolences on behalf of the party to his friends, family and colleagues in Bolton. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Winstanley. Councillor Jones, do you wish to speak?
Hi, Madam. Apologies. Just looked through the minutes of the last meeting and this meeting, and I've not seen any mention of Councillor Anne Ramplin, who passed away recently. Don't know if it would be able to, when this is finished, to pay a tribute, if possible. I don't know if there's a procedure for that, maybe. Thank you.
Leader. Thank you.
Okay, Madam Mayor, I could easily talk about Councillor Ramplin and Councillor Jones, because certainly I knew how much Bryn meant to Anne and the efforts that she put in there. But speaking of David Greenhalgh, I've got to know David over the last couple of years, obviously, And through the difficult times that we had as leaders in GM in terms of dealing with the COVID crisis, and Michael is right. If it needed to be said, whether it was government policy or not, David would say it. And I did say to him, I think that's secured that you don't get on the Queen's honours list this year anyway, David. And he did. He was quite passionate about Bolton and everything that Bolton stood for, and he was really annoyed with Nicola Sturgeon when they did the travel ban on people from Bolton. He said, I expect it from Wigan, but I never expected that Scotland would want to stop people from Bolton travelling. So David was one of life's good guys. I think that's the best way to describe him. He was a showman. Unfortunately, I couldn't get to his funeral, but I believed it was as good as any West End production that David actually appeared in, because he was a keen. I think he still got involved in amateur dramatics in some sense, and sometimes it helps in politics if you're good at amateur dramatics. But certainly David was one of life's nice guys, and I know he'll be sadly missed by his friends and colleagues. Like Michael said, we perhaps always didn't see eye to eye, certainly in politics, but what we did see eye to eye was getting the best for the people who we represented, and David was very, very much on that. And you do have a lot in common with Councillor Greenhalgh. We often talked about town centres, for example, but I'll save that for another day. But he was certainly a very nice guy, and I know he'll sadly be missed by many. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Jones, can I just come back to you, please, on your query about ex-councillor Anne Rampling? We wrote to the family from council and from the Labour group, and I personally attended her funeral, but we wouldn't normally do something at full council because Anne had left the council and was no longer a member of the council. I hope that's okay. No problem, thank you. At this point, may I ask for a minute's silence to show a mark of respect for Councillor David Greenhalgh? Thank you, colleagues. Please be seated.
I think the lady Smith and Anna's going to leave now.
UK Council of the Year 2021, the IESE Public Sector Transformation Awards. Can I take this opportunity to announce that Wigan Council has won the UK Council of the Year 2021 award in the Public Sector Transformation Awards. Well done to Wigan Council once again. The Olympic medal winners. Further to my announcement at the last council meeting, I would like to congratulate the following on winning medals in Tokyo. Keely Hodgkinson, Athletics 800 metres, a silver medal. Greg Warburton, Wheelchair Basketball, bronze medal. Can I congratulate both Keely and Greg on this achievement and wish them well for the future? Aye to me, the Mayor's Ball. Can I advise members that the Meuse Ball will be held on Saturday, the 2nd of April 2022, and the venue is Killie Court in Worthington. The event will again be organised by the Charity Committee. It is a black tie ball, and the proceeds from the event will go to the Meuse charity. Tickets will be available via the charity trustees. Item 4, declarations of interest. The monitoring officer has provided advice to all members and relevant guidance has been issued. Members are asked to consider relevant interests for the purpose of this meeting, and if there are any interests, members must leave the room during the relevant item. Please fill out the form on page 13 of your agenda and return this to Christine at the end of the meeting. Item 5, update from Cabinet portfolio holders. I invite Councillor Reedy to speak at this point on the Bexhill Drive play area, Hindley Green. Councillor Reedy.
Speaking, how good is it to see you sat in that chair after the years we've had? Members will recall a motion came to Council a few months ago, maybe more than a few months ago, and this was referred to Council by Councillor Vickers. That was then referred to Cabinet, and I've got to say that the motion that Councillor Vickers put to Council was anything but ambitious, and I've got to say that, but it definitely got the issue on the agenda. I thought it was only right that it was brought to this Council to come back with an update for Council. This is a very unique situation, and it goes back decades. Under the leader's instruction, we took the play area back under the Council ownership. We worked very closely with the community and took most of their ideas on board. And I've got to say at this stage, I've been out on a couple of occasions to meet the residents at Bexhill and astounded by the work ethos and the community things that they get on there. And we've spoke a lot about Peter Smith tonight. And one of the things naturally Peter gave me to do on the Cabinet was work in communities. And Peter said, it's communities that make this council what it is and really push that agenda. So I think he'd be really proud of if he saw those people there and the amount of work they're doing. This work will be undertaken by the Green Spaces Department and come under their budget control. And I've got to say that naturally we've got a timeline, and I know members have been briefed on that, and we're hoping that this play area, and it has been designed by the local community of what they wanted and what we could fit in. So hopefully in April 2022, we'll have a new shining play area there. But don't hold me to that because we know the years we've had and the delays that we could have in tender processes. So we've got to do that. But one of the things, I think, talking to the residents, is that they don't only have a play area there, they want this as an event space as well. And I think that's incumbent of a lot of spaces that we've got in this borough at the moment, where people are doing more in them open spaces to generate that community spirit. And I think the COVID Recovery Fund, which the leader put forward, has helped them groups fundamentally to do that kind of things. So I've got to give a massive, massive thanks to the community group and their patience and understanding in this issue. But I've also got to give a massive thanks to Councillor John Vickers, who brought this agenda to us and actually worked behind the scenes and doing all this work. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Reedy. Councillor Jones, what is your point of order, please? I'm waiting. I'm waiting for your point.
That is not a Cabinet portfolio update. What that is a Labour councillor using his power to push another Labour councillor when this guy's done all hard work. That's what that is. That is not an update for the borough. That's an update on one issue, on one ward. That's been all over. I'll be honest, I'm sick of seeing it on social media between John and Bob and Paul. But the point is, that's playing politics there, and he's using his cabinet member buddy to do it. When you speak, I want an update on this borough where I pay my tax, not on one play area.
Councillor Jones, that isn't a point of order.
It is if he's telling porkies.
No, I'm sorry, it isn't a point of order. There are other updates later on in the agenda. Thank you. Councillor Maiden, as you'll see before, there is no other members allowed to speak on this. It is just a cabinet update. Thank you. Okay, well, I invite Councillor Cunliffe to speak at this point on the Audit Social Care Fund. Councillor Cunliffe. If you actually look on the paperwork in your agenda under item 5, it is only update from Cabinet. It actually says no other speakers permitted. Councillor Maiden, can you sit down, please?
Just let Brendan answer first.
Sorry, excuse me, Mayor. Then this is a matter, it's just a Cabinet member update. This is not a matter for further debate. It's just the updates from the Cabinet members. Councillor Maiden, I'm afraid that's Councillor Maiden. Councillor Maiden. Councillor Maiden, this is, thank you very much. These are updates from Cabinet members. These are not matters for debate. Councillor Maiden, thank you.
Councillor Maiden, this is your first warning. We have asked you, please be quiet. These are just Cabinet updates. Thank you. Councillor Cunliffe. Councillor Briley, what's your point of order? Councillor Briley, we will put it in writing, the Constitution, for you, and then you can reread it through. And you can
Councillor Briley, I'm happy to
That's
supply with some of the details of what you've requested there. I'll do it in writing for you.
Is that okay, Councillor Briley? Councillor Maiden, I have asked you once, please. I have asked you, please be quiet. Councillor Cunliffe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As portfolio holder for adult social care, I think we've had a recent government announcement about social care, and so I think it's appropriate that I just explain to the council my views on that as adult social care portfolio. So in 2017, the Tory government at the time said they were going to issue a green paper on social care. 5 times it was postponed and no announcement was made. In 2019, they said they were going to issue a white paper on adult social care. Still no response from the government on that. And then in July 2019, Boris Johnson stood on the ground on the front of Downing Street and said, I have a clear plan, we have a clear plan to address the problems within social care. He kept them secret for two and a half years. And then earlier this month, we got the big reveal. And it's not often I agree with Tory MPs. But I must agree with the Tory backbencher who said, if the big reveal of a decade of thinking is this, then some people need sacking. And so I agree with that, because what we have is a social care plan that has no plan for social care. Over the last 10 years, during austerity, state funding for social care has receded by about £8 billion. And in terms of the NHS, which most of the money that the government are intending to generate over the next 3 years, by far the majority of that is going to the NHS to deal with the issues around COVID and the waiting list for elective surgery. And probably quite rightly too. But when you think that the average increase in NHS funding since its inception was about 3.7% a year, and during the Labour government, the last Labour government, spending on the NHS was increased by 6 to 8% a year. During the last 10 years, it's been increased by 1.4%. So actually, this is only making up what they've already taken off or not put in over the last 10 or 11 years. And so there's very little social care. And for those people who think that now the government have resolved the problem of social care, there'll be no social care precept, can I tell you that the government's proposals assume that councils will continue to rise council tax with a social care precept in order to fund social care. So there's very little, and there is likely to be a social care precept for adult social care. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the next few years there isn't a social care precept for children's social care as well, because of the difficulty that children are in. So they've introduced an £86,000 cap on payments that people will have to pay towards the care, and after that, they won't have to pay anymore. But the burden of paying for that in national insurance is actually coming on young workers and young people, and to us as well, in paying employers' national insurance. So whatever bits of money we get for social care, don't forget we have increased employer costs on national insurance. And so it's putting the burden on young people and young workers and not on wealthy pensioners. And it's a fairly regressive way of doing that, because for me the simplest way would have been to increase income tax. And so the £86,000 cap, when you think about it, house properties in Wigan, the average house in Wigan is about £162,000. That's the average price. So 86,000 is almost, is more than half of that. So somebody in Wigan who hits the £86,000 care cap will lose about 50% of the property. The £1 million mansion in Surrey, they'll retain £900,000. What this thing's doing is not addressing the problem that half of the people in adult social care are people of working age with a disability. And saving and protecting people's inheritance does nothing for a 30-year-old with a learning disability who is going to receive care for the rest of his life. It does nothing about 70% of care workers who earn below the real living wage, and it does nothing about the 25% that are on 0 hours contract. It does nothing for carers and families who care and get a carer's allowance of £67 a week. So it does nothing for unpaid carers. So what happened is that the Prime Minister had the chance to reform and transform social care for millions of disabled people, and he failed abysmally.
Thank you. I invite Councillor Bolton to speak at this point on the current schools update. Councillor Bolton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for inviting me to speak. As portfolio holder, I'm giving a brief update on education and our schools in the borough. Good evening, everyone. I'm pleased to report that all our schools and colleges opened on time at the beginning of this new academic year, as they warmly welcome back their students. Our school leaders, staff and governors should be commended for their resilient approach to adopting the new measures to keep our pupils safe. The brilliance in our schools and colleges was certainly, however, not matched or supported well enough by the Tory government, exemplified in a Tory minister who dithered, changed his mind and then dithered again on so many vital issues, as schools worked valiantly through the pandemic and looked for some firm guidance in preparation for the September opening. However, we're all clear what his position is now. One Education Secretary fired. The success of regular testing has led to early identification of some COVID cases, which means our schools are able to take swift and appropriate action supported by our public health teams. As all adults have now been offered the vaccine and self-isolation restrictions are eased, we anticipate fewer issues with staff capacity this term. Similarly, pupil attendance is seen to be building up to pre-pandemic levels. So, of our 48,000 plus children in the borough, 94% of them have returned to school since the start of term. All children and young people are expected to be in school unless they have a positive test result and need to self-isolate. This being said, our schools and colleges continue with stringent cleaning routines and effective pupil organisation in and around their buildings. They consistently support all public health messages in the best interest of staff and pupils. The vaccination programme for 12 to 15-year-olds is currently being drawn up by our health colleagues to roll out in the next weeks, supported by school nurse teams on site. As our schools and colleges work hard with all kinds of catch-up programmes, including academic, social and sports activities, the mental health and well-being of pupils is very much at the forefront of all recovery plans. A new service will provide 2 specialist mental health support teams to enhance the current provision and ensure that priority needs are met at the right time from the right people who can give the best help to our children and young people. Nationally, GCSEs were different again this year. After a ridiculously long wait and a lot of unnecessary anxiety for teachers, students and parents, the government finally announced that GCSE and A-level grades were to be teacher assessed. Comparative school attainment data will not be published, but we have had really positive grade outcomes for a significant number of pupils, and we're working closely with those needing additional support to help them move forward successfully in their education or employment journey. Our Excellence in Education strategy and our SEND transformation plan are now approved, and we're already making positive headway in taking actions forward, working collaboratively with partners in health and children's social care. Finally, I am pleased to report that we have placement sufficiency in our early years sector. The pandemic did not leave us with any major concerns, and our high-quality early years education and childcare provision is once again available to families in all our communities across the borough. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bullen. Can I just please ask members when we are having updates? I'm sure all members of this council are really interested and want to listen to these updates on the way it affects our residents in this borough. So could I please ask you all to please be quiet when they're speaking? Thank you. I invite the leader to speak at this point on the UK Council of the Year 2021 IESE Public Sector Transformation Award. Leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And first of all, can I say thank you to my cabinet colleagues for their updates. Once again, Madam Mayor, we've been successful in being named the Council of the Year. And a lot of this goes down to the efforts of staff. It is a massive amount of effort that has gone in over the last 2 years in terms of what we've had to face with, both as a community and as a council. And if it wasn't for the splendid work of our staff across all sectors of this authority, you don't win awards like we've won here. And I was just pleased to advocate that again yesterday when I spoke to 200 staff in a listening to action session and thanking them personally for what they have done, certainly in many cases above and beyond their duties that they would normally do. So I think it's a significant recognition, not ourselves patting ourselves on the back, but by an outside organisation looking in to see what this council has achieved, what this council does. And I'm proud, Madam Mayor, that once again we've won a trophy which names this council Council of the Year. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. Constitutional issues of casual vacancy.
Owing to the death of the former leader and councillor Peter Smith on the 2nd of August, there is a casual vacancy for the Lee West Ward. The by-election will take place on the 14th of October and the count will take place at Lee Town Hall.
Thank you. Dates and times of meetings 2022-2023. We have a report on pages 19 to 24 of the agenda, which asks the Council to formally accept the timetable of meetings for 2022-23. Since the report was published, there has been a change to the dates of the Regulation Committee, and the dates of that committee will be brought forward by 1 week and will therefore start on the 10th of June 2022. An updated version will be circulated to members in due course. I invite the leader to move the timetable of meetings as set out on page 19 of the Council agenda, including the change to the Regulation Committee as referred to at the meeting.
Pleasure to move the report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. Is this motion seconded? Thank you, Deputy Leader. Do any other members wish to contribute on this item on the agenda? Councillor Walker.
Emails to us so that we can, because otherwise we spend hours clicking it from this list and then later on we get those invites. So that would be appreciated by us all, I'm quite sure. Okay, that's all.
We'll get that sorted. Thank you, Councillor Walker. Item 7, policy. Councillor Brealey.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I didn't quite got toilet then. Can I not speak on that, Councillor? Yeah.
No,
I pressed my button at the part.
They were just portfolio leader updates, so I'm sorry. No other member can speak on those, Councillor Brealey.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Sorry, can I put the report to the vote? The report is passed, thank you. Policy and budget framework. Review of the Council's core strategy. Council motion from the 21st of July 2021. At pages 25 to 64, we have a report of the Director of Transformation, which was considered by Cabinet on the 2nd of September, and which relates to the motions submitted by Councillor Gerard in July 2021. I invite the leader to move the recommendations.
Recommendations, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Would anyone like to second the Thank you, Councillor Reader. Councillor Reader, do you wish to speak on the item now or reserve the right to speak later? Leader, would you like to speak on the item? Do any other members wish to contribute?
Can I speak first, Madam Mayor?
Yes, of course. Sorry, Leader.
First of all, can I thank Councillor Gerard for the motion? I think it was a very much... unfortunately, I weren't here to listen to it. I was suffering with the dreaded COVID bug, but I'm thanking him for him bringing this up. And I'd like to tell him very clearly that there is an ongoing core strategy in terms of an update, and all members are entitled to make a contribution to that. There's nothing cast in stone, so if you please, if you've things you need to wish to raise and bring to our attention, please do. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. Do any other members wish to contribute? No, Leader, do you wish to sum up? Sorry, Sorry? I do look over there, Councillor Brealey. Thank you. Councillor Gerard.
I would like to thank all involved in bringing this report to the Council within the 2 months of us submitting this motion. I would also like to express my thanks to the commitment to making this recovery plan across party and, more importantly, across Bury consultation through initiatives such as the big listening events, which have been successful in the past for the Airtime project. The most intriguing part of this, I think, was the Citizens Board, what was mentioned, and I think we brought it up in committee. that this is most welcome, because we need to use and tap into the talent and expertise of not just people in this council, councillors, but also borough-wide, which there is loads out there who commit to making their area better and how to get it better. But we need to commit to enhancing our town centres to build them back up. A recent summer market in Atherton shows that we put events on, such as this, people do return to the town centres and boost local trade. I'm already getting inquiries as to why we can't have them regular. But the answer is red tape, and such as road closures and costs. But we need to remove this, which I don't see in the report, to remove these barriers to help communities put on more events to attract more people to our high streets, which will boost local trade. A commitment is needed to bring long-term empty properties, into use by layabout landlords who are letting buildings deteriorate into a condition where no one in their right mind will take a gamble. If landlords are not forthcoming, we need to use all the powers available to bring these properties back into multi-use. There's many premises that have been empty for years, and in some cases decades. Now there's an opportunity to bring these back via the compulsory purchase order scheme and turn the upstairs of these properties into good quality rental apartments. I don't see anything of this in the report. And rent them out. The rental income on these will then offset the space below to allow these to be used for pop-up shops, so entrepreneurs can test an high street model at minimal risk. So I'd like to see that in the report as well going forward. To support local business, we need to mix the modern approach with the old. Due to work patterns changing, most do not work in the town they live in. The cost being trade being spent in other areas rather than our own towns. During the pandemic, our local greengrocer in Atherton set up a text and collect service, and it was absolutely fantastic. Sorry, I've lost my track. This was very successful, during the pandemic. Unfortunately, the shop has closed earlier this month. Had a system been in place which connected our high street shops to an app for a similar service, the shop may have just survived and rode out the COVID storm as people went back to work and back to their old shopping habits. We need to make use of the technology most of the population now use and take for granted, and combine that into our local high streets. Also, we had the Our Town scheme in most towns, and in Atherton we had it back in May, June time. But since then, we've had very little maintenance in Atherton, and it is showing. So regular weekly maintenance of our town centres is important. This year, after the Our Town visited Atherton, with only half of the jobs completed, it was just left to go back to square one. Untidy grass verges, litter and mess not picked up, potholes left for months, uneven payments inspected but left, is not requiring attention. Our town centres need to be clean, tidy, well lit and welcoming and safe. We must commit to regular weekly or to fortnightly maintenance and repairs once highlighted and fixed within 48 hours in the town centre. If we are truly going to regenerate our town centres, it has to be done fairly. £134 million on one town centre is not regenerating our town centres, as it says in the report. It's just regenerating one at very high cost. Major investments are needed in all towns to truly boost local recovery plan that benefits the whole borough. And that's it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gerard. Do any other members wish to contribute? Councillor Briley, I believe you want to come in now. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak on this. Yeah, this core strategy at our town. I was always led to believe Aspel, where Councillor Reid is the council of, was Aspel Village, not a town. You mean Abram, again, another town you're visiting Abram. But it seems like you're alluding why you're not coming to Ingley Green. Ingley Green is a very prosperous place, you know, and it's like, it's achieving a lot of awards, like, you know, Ingley Green in Bloom and Northwest in Bloom and stuff like that. I mean, Play Perks, you know what I mean, which we've fought long and hard for, and we don't get recognition because we know we're the opposition, you know, but yet all this money invested, it should be across the board. Every ward should be getting it, not just certain Labour wards. It should be across the board. I mean, you know, I've recently got an audit, and it's a fantastic, you know, committee. This, like, I mean, an outside body, an outside agency, tells me more than our officers tell us what we're entitled to. You know, and what we're paying for these outside bodies, these consultants, you know what I mean? Why are we not investing that money into our own workforce? And it was highlighted at the last audit meeting by the new auditors of Wigan. And I was applauding it because it's been what I've been raising all the time. I mean, we go out, new locals. And does anybody in here want to know what new local is? Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's a business set up by Donna Hall. And Wigan Council signed up to it.
Councillor Brayley, can
No,
you stick
sorry,
to...
I'm
just
on
stick to the
speak.
agenda. I'm not asking you to be quiet. I'm just asking you to stick to the agenda.
Well, I am, yeah.
Previous members of staff have nothing whatsoever to do with this debate.
It's
Please
for,
stick to the agenda, thank you.
It's the core strategy. You're paying for information on outside people when we've got our own staff. Everything
Councillor
should be
Brayley,
indoors.
can you please move on and continue?
Why do you not want me talking about this?
You've
You know,
only
it's-
got
it's
2
there.
minutes left.
It's
Every
out
member
there.
has only 5 minutes. You've
No,
only
it's
got
new
2
local.
members to
It's
speak.
new local. New local, and Wigan Council stand up for it. So,
Councillor Brayley, if you don't want to speak on the item, can you sit down, please?
I'm speaking on the item, Madam
You've
Mayor.
only got
See,
2
once
minutes
again,
left.
this is the problem.
You're wasting...
We speak the truth.
You are
and you
wasting
put
your
us down all the
valuable
time.
Councillor
We
Brayley,
speak the truth.
by speaking off the agenda.
There's funding everywhere. £43 million being given away.
Councillor Brayley, if you're not going to stick to what you were discussing originally, can you please sit down? I'm quite happy to hear if you stick to what you want to speak to on the agenda. Otherwise, sit down. Thank you.
Right, Madam Mayor. Right, we'll carry on then. I mean, what about the investments we're making? Where's all this money coming from? £130 million on Wigan. I mean, Market Square, you've knocked a fantastic building down. You know, the old Market Square was fantastic. It was a heritage building, and you flattened it.
Yes, of course, Leader. What's your point of order?
The point of order is we're talking about the core strategy. Councillor Brayley, once again, goes off the agenda completely. And let's be honest, his obsessions sometimes take over what he wants to talk about, unfortunately. But please, Madam Mayor, if he's not going to speak to the core strategy, please ask him to cease to speak.
The core strategy, is to
Councillor
deal
Brayley,
to
are you going
2030.
to stick to discussing the core strategy? Because your precious time's running out. You've only got just over a minute left.
Well, with all the interruptions, I'm surprised you've not cut it down.
No, Councillor, every member is allowed 5 minutes. You will have your 5 minutes, providing you stick to the agenda.
Yeah, but you're interrupting me all the time. You can't allow me to speak all the time. I mean, when I'm speaking the truth, what do you mean?
Councillor, that's enough now. Can you please sit down? There's other members wishing to come in. Thank you. Councillor Watson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to thank Councillor Gerard for proposing this motion. I was quite happy to second it, and I also welcome the leader's inclusion of a cross-party approach to this. But what I'll speak about the core strategy and obviously rebuilding our local economy in the post-COVID world that we now live in. And I've been quite vocal since I've been in this chamber that we're more than our 2 main district centres of Wigan and Leigh. And now as members who represent the 10 main district centres and 25 wards, we must increase our borough and that social economic divide as a whole. Now, we've got 14%, we've seen a 14% increase of tenants in 7+ weeks in arrears, rent arrears, and I've got no doubt that council tax also mirrors this. We have 32,000...
Councillor Watson, can you please stick to the core strategy?
This is in the core strategy, Madam Mayor. It's in the report. We have 32,000 residents who are now in receipts on claimants of universal credit. That's almost 10% of the population. And we all know, and I think we can all agree, that this system is not fit for purpose. We've seen an increase of 27% of children and young people throughout this pandemic who are now in receipt of school meals. That's up to 49% of school children in the borough. Now, with future gas prices on the increase, it's going to put these most vulnerable families further at risk. Now, throughout the pandemic, it was our communities who got us through. It was our volunteers. And I think that it's only fitting that we reward these by getting back to basics. And for me, this starts investing. If we've got £130 million investment just for one district, and then in the main district of Wigan, that doesn't, to me, seem fair. Imagine that what £130 million could do for 10 districts, or let's break it down even further, £5 million per ward. We could really improve the social economic divide and grow our communities from bottom up. And I think that's really the approach we should be doing now, because it's really, if we invest all this money, for me personally, this core strategy just in one district, it's not fair for the most vulnerable within our society and our communities and all of our wards. And I think we've all got a duty responsibility to do what's best for the most vulnerable within our communities. So I've got no doubt that I'll liaise with the leader on my views and opinions with this, and I look forward to airing them. So thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Reedy, would you like to speak on this item now? Sorry.
I thought I'd been... No, yeah, well, you mentioned the market there, and it is in the core strategy, so I'm just going to bring this small point up. Instead of spending 135 million on a building which can be repurposed and used, and then that 135 million can be spent on all these wards and level up, bring them up to the standards of Lee and Wigan. I'm just going off what Stuart has said. We could repurpose that building for 35 million and then put the rest into these wards. We're knocking down a perfectly fine building, and it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever to me. You know, I mean, we're talking about building cinemas, and the plans are changing yet again. There's no plan being submitted for this. And you can get up, Keith, and tell me there's outside money's coming in, but there's not. There's no signs of any private money coming in. So it's all going to be us paying for an housing estate when we can be levelling up all these wards. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Reedy, would you like to speak on the item now?
I just want to touch on Councillor Gerrard's a few points that he made about Our Town project and the event. And one of the reasons, and that's and I'm sure people will echo this, John Herriot and his team did a marvellous job with the event stuff, and really on a shoestring budget. But a lot of that money came from European funding this time. And I know in Atherton and Adderley, I've worked with both sets of councillors across the piece, and the Proms has always been a successful event. You know your hat off to the community that have done that. And I think one of the things that we can learn off that, and communities can learn off that, is if we want these events to go forward in the future, we won't have that European funding for another reason that we're not there anymore, is that communities have got to come together with that, because the funding won't be there just to do it from the council. But if you can combine that as a community and do it, we're working on that in our own ward, doing that with some estates. And can I just say, when you do have the core strategy meeting and it's cross-party, and if I'm not involved in that, can you make sure Aspel Village gets a mark in it? Thank you.
Leader, do you wish to sum up?
Yeah, Madam and a lovely village it is, Councillor Reedy. And it also has a flag up there as one of the district centres that was originally formed this borough in 1974. And when we talk about district centres, that's what we mean when we talk about our town. But obviously that needs to be looked at across the borough. And Councillor Gerrard's right, we look across the borough now. And the core strategy does. This is not just about one centre or one town centre or a main town centre. This is about the borough. And any funding we can get in to support whatever we want to achieve for the benefit of this borough, we will. Now is the opportunity, and Councillor Gerrard and Councillor Watson have pointed out some items tonight which they wish people to talk about. Submit them, Because that's what we're saying. This is cross-party. You've got ideas. Let's listen to them. I'm not switching off because you're the opposition. I'm prepared to listen to anybody, which improves a lot for this borough. Sometimes some members get carried away with what's important to them. And in fact, they never actually talk about what's important to the people they represent. So can I just say, Madam Mayor, that this core strategy is for the people of this borough. Not just for one centre, not just for two centres, but for all the centres and for all the communities that make up this borough. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. All those in favour of accepting the recommendation as set out in the report? The vote is carried. Thank you. Item 8, questions and comments. Councillor Briley wishes to ask 2 questions on the Cabinet decision taken on the 5th of August 2021 on the annual government statement. 2021 minute 7 refers. We have been told that Councillor Gerard wants to speak on Councillor Brealey's behalf. Is that right?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. If it's quite possible, we're just looking for responses to both questions that Councillor Briley has submitted.
I invite Councillor Raymond to respond to the questions. Councillor Raymond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for the opportunity to respond to these questions. Madam Mayor, these questions have been to the Council many times before and have been answered on different occasions. Councillor Brearley has also attended training from the Council's professional Treasury advisory team who have explained the Treasury functions to him. But for those of you unaware, these questions are referring to the Council's Treasury management policy. This policy governs how and where the Council's money can be invested and the time period for which it can be invested for. It is presented to the Council every March, and progress on the use of the money is reported quarterly. The Treasury management policy is presented to full Council as part of the Council's annual budget report, but let me put it in simple terms. If you think of the Council's budget as a plan of how much of your salary you spend on different items over the whole year, then the Treasury management policy calculates how much money you will have left over or need each month. Any spare money is invested in the short term, as the aim of the Council is to have 0 cash balances, as we have to pay bank charges for any funds that remain in our bank accounts. What the Council does is place the money with different banks and financial institutions in the short term, as it will be used later in the year. As these are informal and short-term loans, which can be liquidated easily and quickly if needed, the interest paid is relatively low. However, as you will see in the reports every quarter, we look to exceed the standard short-term interest rates. And for the second question, the figures quoted for the Council lending to other councils is over a significant period of time, and it isn't an amount we have placed with any council on any specific given time. All of the money is returned to Wigan Council, and all of the money is used by this council. Madam Mayor, if there was anything wrong with what the council has been doing over the years, our accounts wouldn't be approved by our external auditors every year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Raymond. Councillor Briley, what's your point of explanation?
This money said...
Councillor Briley, there isn't a point of explanation.
It
You're
is.
asking for the incorrect advice there.
She's misled.
Councillor Briley, I think the answer to your questions has been given several times. Now, can you please allow us to carry on? You have had answers several times to these questions. Thank you. Councillor Winstanley wishes to make a comment on the Confident Council decision taken on the 9th of August 2021. Community wealth building in its 7th refers. Councillor Winstanley.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And yes, I do want to comment on the minute of the Confident Council of the 9th of August on community wealth building and the campaign by the council to try and encourage staff, residents and businesses to shop locally. Absolutely agree with that sentiment 100%. And the purpose of this is to put the community wealth building at the heart of Wigan Borough's recovery from the pandemic. And the report talks about the regeneration of our high streets, but before we do that with our town centres, we need to make them attractive to shoppers and visitors. And without that, they simply will not come to our town centres. And actually, we need to start with Wigan Town Centre. I've been inundated with complaints about Wigan Town Centre being filthy, dirty and full of rubbish, reports of dead rats on the street. It's absolutely embarrassing for Wigan Town Centre to be in this state. And I speak as someone who cares passionately about the town centre and all our town centres. And it is an absolute disgrace. And if we don't get the basics right, before any fancy strategies are introduced, you won't have any local people coming here, you won't have any shoppers, and your town centre will be dead. So we need to smarten up the town centre, get it clean, get it looking good, because if you don't, we're going to have a dead town centre and district centres as well. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Winstanley. I invite Councillor Cunliffe to respond to the comment. Councillor Cunliffe.
I thought we'd gone back to core strategy then, because that's the way, that's the place where you will do all these things. But I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about community wealth building, which was the purpose of the report to Confident Council at the time, because I think that's really important. Now, I know Michael and the Tories find this a bit of an alien concept, community wealth building, because their philosophy is based on personal wealth building. And we know that in the way that, you know, contracts for PPE, lateral flow tests have all been given to mates of ministers. So they think about personal wealth building, not community wealth building. But it's really important that in terms of the recovery of this borough following COVID, we need to develop community wealth building. And part of the reason for that is, you know, everybody talks about when is the country going to get back to normal, when it's going to be business as usual. Well, actually, we don't want business as usual, do we? Because business as usual in this borough was that a third of the jobs in this borough pay below the real living wage. And if you look at what's happening here...
Councillor Cunliffe, can you just give me 1 minute, please? I did earlier ask, when we're having answers to our questions and comments, can other members please be quiet? And then we can actually hear the answers. I want to hear these answers that were being given, if not everyone else does. So can you please be quiet and show some respect? Thank you.
So a third of the wages in this borough prior to the pandemic were below real living wage. Unemployment was rising, and we know there are certain parts of this borough where unemployment is high and social deprivation is high. And so actually we want something different. This council spends £350 million a year on goods and services, buying in goods and services. We buy those goods and services, about 40%, from firms within, or companies within this borough. If we increase that by 10%, we would generate an extra £30 million to businesses within Wigan. Now, of course, there's an accumulator effect, because that £30 million and increased business will mean they will have to take staff on, they'll have to pay wages, those people who get that wage would spend it in the borough, and so it generates that. So there's a significant improvement in that, but that's just the council. So part of community wealth building is talking about the whole public sector. If we had the NHS, if we had schools, if we had colleges, if we had the police, There's over £1 billion of public sector spending in this borough every year. Think what a difference we could make if we could get the hospital, the NHS, the police, all those to start to develop more and generate more business within the borough. So part of the community wellbeing strategy is about that. And of course, Shop Local is part of that. And it's only a small part of it, because actually generating that anchor partnership, generating that work, has brought about great things already. So the police, GM Police, have launched an apprenticeship scheme in Wigan, taking on young people into apprenticeship. If we remember, during the pandemic, hospitality was particularly hard hit, the hospitality industry. But during the COVID crisis and following that, our local hospital is having difficulty with staffing. Yet there are many transferable skills from people working in hospitality to people working in a care setting. And that opportunity to provide work for people has been tremendous. So, looking at social care, looking at ethical framework, looking at working with businesses, and we've developed a business consortium, and businesses themselves are working business to business. We've launched a procurement training for businesses in this borough, only last month. It's oversubscribed. The first one's full, and there's a waiting list of 40 businesses to get onto procurement training, so that they are better equipped for public sector procurement and to get contracts and business within this borough. We're talking about them employing and developing skills, but not everything is going to be done by firms in this borough, and some of the larger companies we need to think about that come into this borough about the social value we put into contracts. That we ask the social value...
Councillor Cunliffe, can you finish off, please? Your time's up. Thank you.
So the whole community wealth building approach will help significantly in our recovery. And it's more than just Shop Local. It's a range of different initiatives.
Thank you, Councillor Cunliffe. Councillor Winstanley wishes to make a second comment on the Confident Places decision taken on the 1st of September 2021. Annual progress on the climate crisis. Minute 5 refers. Councillor Winstanley.
Emissions, which I thought was quite interesting, because this climate crisis is a worldwide issue, not something confined to this borough nor this country. So I was surprised I couldn't find any reference to the countries that are the world's biggest producers of global emissions, not necessarily the EU, and that's China. Where are they mentioned in this report? They are the biggest polluter in the world, and it's therefore somewhat baffling that this council has decided to award a contract to the Beijing Construction Group, which is owned by the Chinese government.
Can you please refer from your comments? That is nothing to do with climate change. Thank you. Stick to the agenda.
Madam Mayor, if I may say so, I submitted this comment in advance. If this comment was out of order, it should have been ruled out by the monitoring officer.
Sorry, do you want to carry on, Councillor Winstanley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah.
Thank you.
So if this council was serious about the issue, then giving a contract to a country that is one of the world's biggest polluters would be a start. Normally, it's the polluter pays. In this borough, it's pay the polluter. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I invite Councillor Prescott to respond to the comment. Councillor Prescott.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and it is good to see you back where you belong. Madam Mayor, in response to the councillor's comments, I feel that In response to the councillor's comments, I feel that it should be pointed out to the councillor, as I'm sure he's already very aware, that the annual progress on climate crisis report was discussed at the last meeting of the Confident Places Scrutiny Committee, at which members of the Conservative group were present. To my recollection, no issues were raised of this nature by them at that point when the report was discussed. Madam Mayor, the annual Climate Craze report was produced and will be produced on a yearly basis. And the progress report on the climate crisis and to report on the 6 action themes, which are our resilience and adaptation, our air quality and transport, our natural environment, our built environment, our sustainable and consumption environment, and communities and well-being, as well as the Council's own organisational emissions, together with the Wigan Borough's emissions taken as a whole. Now, as far as I'm aware, and I stand to be corrected, it does not include those of the People's Republic of China. And Madam Mayor, I would inform members that the report was formed by using data that was provided by central government, which to my knowledge did not include comments of the CO2 output of the aforementioned country. Now, if that was remiss of them in doing so, I would suggest to Michael that he takes that issue up with the government himself. Well, I'm not holding my breath on that one, Madam Mayor. Yeah, well, maybe. And I would draw members' attention to the fact that when this council declared a climate change emergency back in 2019, that the Conservative group failed to support that motion. Yet now, they question the actions of others. Also, given Councillor Winstanley's comments regarding doing business with China, then I have to put the question to him, why has he not publicly openly criticised his own Tory government, who have since, according to the Office of National Statistics 2018, increased imports into the UK from China by 66%, to a point where in the first quarter of this year, they imported £16.9 billion worth of goods into the UK from China. And I dare say, members, in all innocence, every single person sitting in this chamber tonight is either using a device, a mobile, an iPad, goes home and watches TV that is directly from China, or lots of parts that are integral to its function come from China. Right. Madam Mayor, this comment is clearly a blunt tool and more than a little hypocritical when you consider the above statistics. If the Council truly had concerns about climate change and the biggest contributory factors to that situation, then why has he not, nor I suggest will he ever raise, those statistics I have just quoted earlier with his own Conservative government, who clearly see no conflict with their own environmental policies to achieve zero emissions by 2050, while continuing to increase levels of trade with the People's Republic of China? I think the old adage applies here, Michael. Don't quote it freely. It's not wise to throw stones when you live in a glass house. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Councillor Prescott. Item 8, 1B, questions. Councillor Gerard wishes to ask the following urgent 2 questions, and he has my permission to do so. Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'd just like to add a little bit more context to the question. As I'm sure everyone in this chamber is aware, we have faced a trying time to get issues resolved due to COVID. And I appreciate the inquiries have trebled in the last year, as we was informed about this earlier this week. And we fully appreciate the efforts our staff make to cope with the demand. The trouble is, though, we are still seeing the message, only urgent inquiries are being dealt with at this moment in time. That's over 2 months after full restrictions were lifted in England. We've also seen problems with the migration from the RIC system to the new members' inquiry system, and they still haven't been completed properly or in time. Reports are not being inputted correctly on the system and going missing or to the wrong department. Then when we are chasing up these reports after the allotted timescale, we are getting a standard template response from officers saying we have to submit the reports on the inquiry system, even though we already have. And I'm pretty sure everyone has had that unfortunate message recently. I appreciate there will be teething problems, but we have to remember these reports are affecting our bosses, the ratepayers, who are currently receiving a 50% service but still paying 100% tax. If staffing is the issue, we need to resolve that and go on a recruitment drive. We should not be in a situation where we are reporting issues such as grass cutting, weeding, residential and street bins to be emptied. We need a rigorous maintenance schedule where these are done proactively and not reactively, as is the case now, and clogging up the members' enquiry system. If kept to this maintenance schedule, this will lessen the demand on the system. So issues such as housing problems and more important issues that are not missed are put on the back of the queue. I mean, recently I've had an elderly lady, 90-year-old, can't use the bathroom, and no officer was ready to go out to see her. But look, thank you, Alison, for stepping in. That was solved. But we should not have to go to that situation. So can the leader please state if he's currently happy with the current system or commit to take on board hours of residents' frustrations and improve the system? Thank you.
Councillor Gerard, would you like to ask your second question, and then I'll get the answers to both questions?
Well, the same time, right, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's fix this up. Yep. Back in the beginning of June, I was told off James Winterbottom that the subjects of Inninghouse and Lowbank Ground will be brought to the Cabinet on the 5th of August 2021. I've still not seen that report or any conclusion of what is going to happen to these grounds, even though the contract with Bradford Trust is up on the 1st of October, so it's very pressing. So these establishments are crucial to children's well-being and going forward. So can the leader commit to ensuring that either the contract with Bradford Trust is renewed or brought in-house so these facilities are not lost? Thank you.
I invite Councillor Reedy to respond to question 1 from Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And can I thank Stuart? I think it's a really important question and important to every member of this council and residents. If we look back at the RIC system and what we had before, and I'll be open and honest, we've never really had a perfect system for this. It's been difficult, and myself and Councillor Raymond have looked at other authorities and they've struggled with it. So one of the issues that we had was the old RIC system was done by an outside body. If we wanted to change it, it cost money. You had to go through the process. So what we wanted was our own system, and this is what the ME system is. So it's quite timely that you've raised it in a sense, because what we always said, and this has been a cross-party kind of thing, Council Services Group and the Task and Finish Group, chaired by Councillor Winstonley, that we would have a 3-month review. That starts on the 1st of October, so it's quite timely with that. Some of the issues you spoke about, quite alarming, and I'd want to know more about that, and I hope that's been gone through to the system, and we need to speak about that. And if there is any of that, bring it to me. And I think one of the issues is that naturally staff are under pressure, and you've pointed that out, Stuart, quite well. We've been in a pandemic, they lifted restrictions, and then everything went ping, and then that created a massive problem for this council and staff, and that set us back months. And we're still in that situation. We don't know what winter's going to bring. And I think the issue is, and I mean this with every member of this council, not opposition or anybody, when you actually open up and say, put whatever you want on, you have everything. If you kind of say, keep it urgent, then you get them urgent items like you pointed out with the old lady. That is an urgent item, which really, if you look at the criteria, if it's urgent, contact these certain people, because life or death issues need to be done. And I know you probably come back onto me that, and it's not me who's done that, but I think there is that issue. But we all in our wards, and we've all got frustrations with grass cutting, tree cutting, you name it. It's not just Atherton, it's Aspel, it's Ingley Green, it's wherever. So it's not just, condensed to one area. And we are in a difficult situation. Hopefully, we're going to kind of come out of that at some point. We don't know what winter's going to bring, so I can't hold my hands up here and say we're all going to be perfect. Hopefully next year we are. we're monitoring, and engineers is the massive department which gets all majority of RICs, well, I should say MEs now, stop saying RIC. And they're under real pressure. And I think if you talk to some of the staff, and I'm sure you have, and you actually pointed that out, we've got to support staff and do that. And some of the RICs that come through, which are not really that important, I think sometimes we've got to be open and honest with residents as well. And say, look, we'll not be able to do that. We will at some point, but in reality, it's not a life and death issue. And, you know, and that's hard. I understand that. It's an hard conversation with residents because they'll just go off and hissy fit, or some will take it on board. But I think we've got to look at the context of all that, of what staff are under. And I think the staff that have done the ME system have done a tremendous job. And I know Michael will probably back that up, and making it fit to what we need it to fit. It's not perfect, because that's why we've got 3-month stay of execution, if you like, to do it. And they want to know what these blips are, because we had a timeout issue, we've had different issues, and any IT system has that. But I'm confident that at some point we'll get to a perfect solution with this. And when I say perfect, a perfect solution in the eyes of IT is always down to the users. Anybody who uses IT, it is down to the users and how you use it. And I think what I would say to everybody here, and I've had conversations with members of the Labour group, is be patient with it. And if you've got issues, let me know, and same to you. But think about what you're putting on, and think about what staff have to deal with, and what you think is realistically doable, or can it wait? And I think there's a message there, but we are looking at it, Stuart, and I thank you for bringing it, and it's timely. So Councillor Service Group will be involved in that, task and review, but any member can send that into the IT department, through to Peter Hughes, and say, look, these issues, they want to know these issues. So clearly they want to try and solve that. But thanks for bringing it, and we are on board with it and trying to do it, mate. But thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reedy. I invite the leader to respond to question 2 from Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think there's only myself and Freddie were probably around when we actually took ownership of Inningouse and Lowbank, and it was a big commitment then. And it certainly was what we saw as a benefit for the young people of this borough. And I can tell you now that Peter Smith was passionate about what we did at Lowbank and in Inningouse. We're now looking at options that are available to us, because we know how important it is that young people in this borough get the opportunity to go to the outdoor activity centres in the Lake District. Some of these young people have perhaps never been out of the borough. So I think it's so important that what we deliver at Inningouse and Lowbank House is the right delivery for those young people. And it may be there are options for other people to use Lowbank House. People in social care, people who need that support because of mental health issues and breakdowns. And that break in the Lake District could mean so much to these people. And the Cabinet will be looking at the options that are available, certainly, Stuart, before the end of the year. But I can assure you that there is no option in there to sell or get rid of any of these 2 properties, because we feel it's so important to the borough that what we deliver is the right deal for everybody. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. Notice of motion. A motion has been submitted by Councillor Marsh, which is set out on page 71 of the agenda. Okay, thank you, Councillor.
Madam Mayor, could I just add that given that the proposals on the subject matter are like to come before Cabinet at some point in the future, that members of Cabinet who are present tonight may want to think whether it's appropriate to make any particularly strong comments either for or against this particular motion. Thank you.
Councillor Marsh.
Madam Mayor, before I begin, I just wanted to request that the vote on this motion is carried out as a named vote under Rule 14.4. I think I've got the 10 members I need to support, so I'm not sure if you want to deal with that now or...
Councillor Marsh, we need 10 members to actually support a name vote. We got 10.
Oh, yeah. Can you imagine?
Thank you. We've got more than 10, so that will be a name vote.
Thank you very much, Madam
You'd
Mayor.
like to carry on, Councillor Marsh.
Again, I'm speaking about something relating to housing in Standish, which I'm not support. So those that know me, it's not surprising. Standish has seen an unprecedented level of housing in recent years, and to say that it has had a negative impact would be the understatement of the year. Although the applications for these houses were passed quite a number of years ago, the schemes are now being built out at pace, and we are seeing the full impact that this will now have on our community. In Standish, we now have pressures on health services, subscription at schools, a massive reduction of green spaces, animals being forced out of the habitat, and yes, increased congestion and pollution. As a friendly community, Standish has welcomed the new members of our community warmly, and I'm sure businesses welcome the extra footfall. However, with the increase of footfall comes a strain on the built environment in the centre of Standish, especially as we have not seen any significant improvements to the centre of the village in eons. Section 106 in Community Infrastructure Levy funding, agreed some years ago, present one of the only opportunities to try and mitigate the impact of the housing developments in Standish, and indeed, to be able to be spent, they must do so. I was strong, when this all began, I was really encouraged by the council's efforts to engage with councillors and community groups to find schemes that would provide the required mitigation and command public support. And I do want to thank officers in particular for the long hours of meetings that we've had around this issue. I was also 100% behind the council's proposal that a consultation should take place to let the public decide which schemes to take forward. The consultation included a mix of schemes, some put forward by the council and some by the community. All of the schemes that were considered capable of suitably mitigating a negative impact on house building by the council were put into the consultation, as those that weren't included in the final consultation, because that's one of the requirements of the funding. The headline act, if you will, was the choice between widening School Lane and improvements to the built environment in the centre of Standish, which I've already referenced. The latter was a proposition that was included in the Standish Neighbourhood Plan, which was approved in a referendum by a margin that would make any of us jealous, to be honest, at our local election. The recent consultation received almost half the total number of responses that the council's previous big listening project did across the entire borough, and it shows just how invested the residents of Standish are in this issue. It showed the results of it showed quite clearly that Standish residents were against the widening of School Lane. We've been told that this decision has yet to go through the council's governance processes. However, unfortunately, a press release by the council extolling the virtues of widening School Lane and raising concerns about the improvements to the centre of Standish, in essence, kind of gave the game away of what the decision the council is minded to take, or, well, officers are going to recommend. Such a conclusion would go against the plainly expressed wishes of those who responded in good faith to this consultation. Now, in this press release, the council raised concerns about the improvements to the centre of Standish, around the fact that no highway impact assessment has taken place. Frankly, this proposal has been in the mix since the creation of the neighbourhood plan and the start of our talks with the council concerning how to spend Section 106 receipts. If such an assessment was so critical to the council's decision-making process, which it now appears to be, an assessment should have been conducted before going out to consultation. In reality, Madam Mayor, there is likely to be little impact on the traffic flow, as although the consultation made reference to pedestrianised improvements, which could be interpreted as pedestrianisation, the proposal doesn't intend to restrict or limit traffic in any way. Additionally, the centre of Standish has been starved investment for years, and with the increased footfall from additional housing, many residents want to see improvements there. That's not to go on the Our Town, you know, there's lots of little jobs that are important too, but from significant investment, it's been starved over a long time, which is why I think residents have generally come out in favour of the proposal to improve the centre. If the improvements to the centre of Standish weren't viable, or the unknowns were so great, I'm confident the council wouldn't have carried out, wouldn't have included it in the consultation. Therefore, the key factor in this decision is about what residents of Standish want this money to achieve for them, as they are the people who have been impacted by the scale of house building in Standish. In my opinion, if it's worth anything, the widening of School Lane will completely change the character of the centre of Standish to a detriment. However, as I've said on a number of occasions throughout my comments, it's not really about that. It's about respecting the views of residents. And I really hope colleagues will back this motion, as the issue of respecting residents when the consultation is taking place is something that could happen in any one of our wards. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Marsh. Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Madam Mayor, and I will reserve my right to speak later.
Thank you, Councillor. Do any other members wish to speak on the motion? Councillor Prescott.
Madam Mayor, in response to the motion that's been moved by Councillor Marsh, as you will be aware yourself, we have a levy in Goulburn and Loughton, as well as Standish. The public consultation earlier this year has been used to gauge public opinion on all of the proposed schemes and will be used to inform of the next steps. At this point, the Council are currently progressing with the governance arrangements to ensure that the decision-making process is transparent and accountable. This process is due to be completed sometime late autumn. Madam Mayor, I can advise Council that in relation to the School Lane scheme, that we have received a broad spectrum of responses which will be used alongside the highways evidence to ensure that any measures taken in Standish will improve congestion and mitigate the impact of already approved development, which, Madam Mayor, after all, is the very reason that the monies have been collected. So, Madam Mayor, as I have indicated at this stage, no decisions have been made at all on the projects that will be moved forward. Therefore, to agree a position on School Lane at this point would not be in accordance with the processes I have described and which I referred to previously. So, Madam Mayor, for the above reasons, we will not be supporting the motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Prescott. Councillor Winstanley, as you reserve your right to speak as seconder, I now invite you to speak on the motion.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I think my colleague, Councillor Marsh, has explained the points quite adequately tonight. What I would say is that I would urge...
Councillor Winstanley, I'm very, very sorry. Councillor Briley's just highlighted that he wishes to speak, so can we allow him to speak before you sum up? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It seems once again, this council, it always puts money before the public. Yet, Councillor Molyneux there said early on that it's all about the people of Wigan Borough. Well, you're destroying heritage. You're destroying that road. It runs parallel with the Victorian graveyard and everything. I mean, it's a monumental road. But you've not looked at it properly. You know, like it's 106 money, it's £5,000 per house from the government. You know what I mean? Council tax. It's devastated Standish. All these houses. Not again.
Leader, what's your point of information?
No, I'm so interested in Councillor Braley's comments, and I've sat here listening to him. But where is the graveyard, what you're talking about? Because I'm not quite sure on School Lane. Unless you tell me where this graveyard is on School Lane, and certainly we'll have to take it into consideration. So if you could please highlight to this council meeting where that graveyard is.
It's going past the schools, isn't it?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Is it going past the school? Is it not? Yeah. Oh, sorry, Councillor Molyneux. I mean, I don't know every part of the area, but I'm assuming there's that many schools in that lane. School Lane. I mean, don't visit all places, like, I mean. So I'm sorry about that. All right. I stand corrected by you, Councillor Molyneux. I hope you can apologise when you start ripping into me over false information. Thank you. Bye.
Have you finished speaking, Councillor Brayley? Councillor Winstanley, sorry, can you please speak on the motion now? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I won't reference any particular points of interest, should I get them wrong. But I think my colleague, Councillor Marsh, has outlined the case very eloquently tonight in terms of what the residents who took part in the consultation have had to say. I've been involved in a number of consultations with this council over many years. Normally, they end up posing a question. Lots of people say, we want something else, and the council say, we're going to do that. On this occasion, I would urge the Cabinet who are going to make a decision to really take into account what the members of public have said and actually follow what their people want on this occasion. We talk a lot about the deal and about, the community. So on this occasion, let's do what the people of Standish want and reject this particular scheme. I'll say no more than that, and I'll leave it with the good officers of the Cabinet to make the decision in due course.
Thank you, Councillor Winstanley. Councillor Marsh, I now invite you to sum up on the motion.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Just to thank Councillor Prescott for his comments. He's absolutely right that congestion is absolutely a critical issue in Standish and makes people's lives just that little bit worse. Well, we'll say a little bit, that's not how residents will put it to me. But what is clear that is residents don't think that this is the right scheme to tackle that. We're going through the process of coming up with solutions to this issue. It was quite, getting those initial proposals was quite a rush, but some of them are absolutely fantastic and have come along really well. But on this one, we need to head back to the drawing board and not to just plough on. And I really just hope that Cabinet, when they make the decision in the future, will really take into account the views, really quite strong views of residents on this issue. And and we always say that we're a listening council, and this is a time to prove it. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Marsh. Can I put the motion to the vote? All those in favour of the motion, please show. And we are recording the votes.
Councillor Walker, the motion is to make a recommendation into Cabinet. Ultimately, when proposals do come forward, Cabinet will be the body that makes the decision. Okay. Thank you.
The vote is carried. Thank you. Has everybody not voted? Has everybody not voted? Oh, on the... sorry, it's still coming through. Right. Yeah. So just that clarifies everybody had a chance to vote. Can I ask, has everyone had the chance to vote? I'm sorry, we've had to restart the console. Can everyone please press the voting intentions again? Thank you. It looks like all the votes have been recorded. Is there anyone who hasn't had a chance to vote yet?
They've not voted, they're abstaining.
They're abstaining from the vote. You're welcome, Councillor Brayley. The motion wasn't passed, it was defeated. That concludes the business of the meeting. However, before I close this meeting, I would like to take this opportunity to wish our Democratic Services Manager, Christine Charnock-Jones, a long and happy retirement. Christine has served this council for 43 years and will be leaving us on the 14th of October. Diane Adshead has worked with Christine for 16 years and has been appointed to Christine's position from the 1st of November. On behalf of the members of this council, Christine, I would like to thank you for your contribution and dedicated service over the last 43 years. Thank you so much. Christine, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, well, what a surprise. Yeah, I've come to the end of an era, 43 years, and it's come round so fast. It doesn't seem 2 minutes since you was standing up when I'd done my 40 years and 3 years on, but I can't go until 50 years, so I've got to go at some point. So you will see me till mid-October, and it's just been lovely working for Wigan Council all this time and lovely meeting members and officers. I've made some great friends I've lost, like Tracy Winstanley, who was a good member of the team, Peter Smith, who we've mentioned tonight, others who I'm going to mention later on in my speech. I didn't expect to do a speech tonight, so I haven't prepared anything, but yeah, just come and have a drink with me on the 22nd of October. I'm going to be having a little bit of a function in the Mears Parlour and Council Chamber, so please come along and have a Wigan pie with me, because I'm going to be putting pies on. So thanks again, everyone. It's been a pleasure working with you all. I'll still be at the Mears Ball, Fred. I will. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues, and a safe journey home.